Good afternoon. We will call this meeting to order for June the 13th regular council meeting, and we'll start with the land acknowledgement. So the town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, Siksika, as well as Situtina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on. So we'll move into 2.1, the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions, CEO Becker?
Mayor Barkley, if you could move 7.1 after 4.1, that would be appreciated, please.
Sure. Okay, can I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Okay, thank you, Councillor Hystad. All in favor? Thank you. And we'll move to 3.1, the regular council meeting. Can I please have somebody make a motion to adopt those minutes?
Mayor Barkley, I would make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wing. All in favor? And then the special council meeting of June 6th as well.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barkley.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. All in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, so we have a delegation with us today. We'll ask that Ian Lucas come up and speak to us about the Innisfail Triathlon. Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so first I'd just like to thank you for allowing me the time to come and talk to you about the Innisfail Triathlon for 2022. Unfortunately, we have decided what committee we have left after almost 3 years of a hiatus. We have decided to not try to host it this year for 2022, simply for the fact of we've had such very good luck and such high esteem in the triathlon community to do it half and part and parcel, not to what we normally would do. We need a full year to put it together, as I'm sure Mayor Barkley will attest to. So that's why we decided to cancel it for this year, and we'll try to bring it back bigger and better than ever for 23.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Harrison? Oh, sorry, had your light on.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Barkley. Through to Ian, the delegation. Just a quick question regarding, is Innisfail on a triathlon circuit? Like, I know the rodeo, you attend certain rodeos, you get so many points and it goes towards an aggregate. Is Innisfail part of anything like that? Like your committee? Or?
So we are not a sanctioned triathlon, but you must be a member of the Alberta Triathlon Association to run in our race. That provides insurance for the people that are in the race and for the committee of volunteers that run the triathlon. But we have people from all across Canada come and attend our triathlon. So it's held in very high esteem. And people really enjoy the small town triathlons, and you meet people from all walks of life that do it, whether it be a first time person doing it, whether they're doing a try-it triathlon or a sprint, but all manner of people and all different levels, because you're running the races, the competition, not the person that you're running with, right? It's all timed events. So no, but it could be if we got bigger, and that's not even the right word, bigger, because we're plenty big enough. We would just need to, we would need to apply to Alberta Triathlon to be a sanctioned event, and then there's a few different finesses on the rules that would apply to us then.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Maceros.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Ian, I missed the reason that you're not having it this year. Did you say it's because you've only got half the volunteer contingent, or?
So volunteers certainly is an issue. The triathlon committee itself has had to essentially pay volunteers to come and help us. So to try to, I talked with a woman from 4-H, and that was in February, to see where they might be at for helping us to host a triathlon in September. And she said that they didn't even know how many kids they were going to have come back at the end of that month. So their numbers dropped down to like a quarter of what they were before. I was thinking that I might try to approach the Legion, since I'm involved with the Legion, and try to secure them as more of as a volunteer group, and I'd have no problem obviously trying to kick some donation towards them. Essentially the money that we got from the town of Innisfail to host our triathlon, the woman that was the race director cost a lot of money, and then entry fees from the athletes themselves went to pay for our administration costs and then to pay for volunteers. So, and on that is, it takes a lot of work just in a 1 year span to try to put it all together, to condense it down into a 6-month period. It really seemed hard, especially one of our councils or one of our triathlon committee members had a bunch of stuff personally that she was dealing with too, that really put a ringer in for everybody, so.
Thank you.
Councillor Heisted?
Yeah, Ian, thanks for all your time you put into the triathlon last number of years. Is there anything else that you need from the town or the community? I know that we have a really good, we do a really good job social media wise and, you know, getting things out there, but is there anything else you can see that we can do as a town? And it's not all financial, but what would you be looking for in that 2023? And that I would agree with you, it takes a year to build something as large as it has been over the years. Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Probably the only thing truly besides the support that we've received in the past, which, and again, financial, I mean, everything's always up in the air, and I totally understand that. I don't want to be just coming here asking for money every time that you see someone from the Innisfail Triathlon Committee. So there are a few things I'd like to see. I'd like to see the lines painted on the bike path. We're going to try to do it with spray paint one year, but we ran into a real physical hurdle trying to get that done, and that it was almost like we were defacing the property, and we certainly wouldn't want that. Maybe like a turnaround spot, and then lines for direction and stuff like that, or route markers. We could actually spray paint or paint the number of kilometers that you've done, versus having a sign there. Way easier to see an arrow on the ground telling you to turn there. I'll still put one physically in the direction of it, but 100 things could happen to make that arrow not be standing there. We've lost people before on the bike route, on the run route. Luckily, we haven't lost them in the swimming pool. So, and that would be the only other thing is I really hope that there's no interference with, obviously maintenance of the swimming pool is a huge thing, and you do it when you can. So hopefully that wouldn't be a stumbling block for us either. We might have an avenue to change the date if we had to, but we sure like to keep it on that weekend if we could.
Okay, I think Ian is, you know, if you do have a date for 2023, the sooner the better. You can let CEO Becker know, or probably Director Jenkins, and you know, they can start looking at getting some of those things in place that you need. And it is a big event. Certainly opened my eyes volunteering for it. And I know CEO Becker was also there volunteering, and Stuart Fullish, and it was a big event. And you know, it takes a lot of expertise, right? It's not just volunteers coming in that know nothing about triathlon helping out. That's, I think, another thing that I became very aware of. So thank you for all you've done with this event, and we're certainly looking forward to 2023.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and it'll be the 9th, September 9th
Okay,
is the
perfect.
Saturday that I'm looking at. So if
Okay.
there's any change, I will be all over it. I'll make sure you know.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, and we'll move on to, we're moving 7.1 up, so I'll ask for Karen Bradbury and Manager Leith and Ian, RCMP, sorry. Yeah. Okay. How much detail do you want?
Okay, thank you. So a few things that I can let you know. So my emphasis today is around some of the needs that we've identified through FCSS around mental health, housing, and homelessness in our community. So I'll talk about the mental health piece first and then go into the housing. Some of the things that we've seen is an increased need for mental health supports. Individuals are struggling with access to services because of wait times. Individuals are presenting with suicidal ideation, including some of our youth. They're waiting for 4+ hours at hospital, both local and regional, and have also been sent home with limited supports. Stories of youth experiencing suicidal ideation, waiting 2+ hours on a mental health hotline to speak to someone. Stories of individuals who have been assigned a counselor but are struggling to book appointments. So what I did hear from some of the counselors is individuals can get a fairly quick assessment appointment, but then you may be a month or longer getting a counseling appointment, and your counseling appointments may be once a month or a little bit more extensive than that as well. Clients expressing frustration at turnover in mental health counselors at the hospital. That's been an ongoing issue since I've been here. After telling their story multiple times, it gets quite difficult to continue to do that, so that's something that we've heard. I'll also mention the housing piece, and then I'll come into some of the supports. So in terms of some of the needs that we've identified for housing, lack of housing options in the community, low vacancy rate. If there are housing units available for some of our more vulnerable residents, it is still not affordable, especially if you are living on a fixed income such as AISH, CPP disability, or Alberta Works. That still makes it often too high. Some of the barriers that some of our individuals face as well as getting housing if they have a pet. And almost everybody that we speak to that has a pet that is looking for a place are not accepted because they have a pet. So that is a huge barrier for many of our individuals. And they will say, they'd rather not give up their pet because their pet is sometimes the reason why they still continue to have hope for tomorrow. So that is a big issue for sure. We do have individuals living long-term in some of our hotels and motels for a variety of reasons, and the average monthly rates there are between $800 and $900 a month. We're also starting to see, Sandy and I have seen quite a number of seniors, again, as well at risk of homelessness. They may have lost a spouse during the last year, so they went from having a double income to a single income, so they're kind of panicked over, I can't pay my mortgage if they still have a mortgage. We've heard stories of seniors living on toast because they are paying for their utilities. They're nervous about, getting cut off their utilities, and that is the reality for some of our folks. So we will refer them accordingly as best as we can to supports and services, and I'll let you know what some of those are in a moment. And again, with that, those seniors not eating, malnourishment becomes an issue, which increases their risk of falls as well and hospitalization. So it kind of has that cyclical effect as well. More individuals couch surfing. We've seen some tenting as well, and individuals moving from one location to another for different reasons, whether it's the state of a facility or a rental property. So that's just some of what we've observed through our FCSS office. In terms of mental health, considering what the size of our community, I think we do have some great programs and services. We have about 6 or so different counselors, psychologists, counselors at the hospital, I understand the hospital now has 2 mental health counselors. We have a children's therapist as well. We have a behavioral consultant at the primary care network, and we have at least 3 psychologists. So what we found is I contacted each of those organizations and programs. So the programs that are free, so for instance, mental health at the hospital, those have a 6 to 8 week waiting list. Those that are where there's a fee attached, there might be more availability, but our residents either have no benefits have ran out, or they are just not in the financial situation to be able to pay for those services. So that's been a challenge for a lot of our people. We've had calls from some of our counselors to see if there has been any more funding for subsidy, and right now there's nothing that we're aware of. We keep our eyes open, but nothing at this point. In terms of the housing piece, there are a number of organizations, primarily out of Red Deer, that we refer to on a regular basis. So Amethyst House is a new facility ran through the Canadian Mental Health Association, and that is linked with the Housing First initiative through the province. Safe Harbor, again, that's the emergency shelter, and they are linked with the Housing First initiative. Red Deer Native Friendship Society, Central Alberta Women's Emergency Shelter, those services are free as well, so we refer as much as possible to those. Red Deer Housing Authority is a big one. We have 13 units in the community through Red Deer Housing Authority. Those are strictly for families, so there is nothing for singles or seniors, and they are renovating those as individuals move out. Some of those units are being renovated. The other part of their program is called a rental supplement program, where individuals can apply for subsidy. But we were informed in March that there would be no new dollars till after December. So, individuals can submit an application, but they won't be able to get any subsidy dollars to help towards rent until the new year, if there's still funding available through the province at that time. We also have a Red Deer Community Resource Guide, which we use, which was developed by the Catholic school system in Red Deer, and it has everything from, food supports, housing, grief and loss. So that's a resource. I actually just provided that to Manager Leith as well. So we are connected with a lot of services in the region to refer people accordingly. For us locally, what we do as much as possible is we work with our peace officers. It's very common for our peace officers to come to Sandy or I and say, we have an individual, this is the situation, what can we do? We try and give them the same message, like these are the resources available. We will help individuals apply for Alberta Works, AISH, CPP Disability. We will help in partnership with the Benevolent Fund, provide an emergency gift card or gas card if they need to get to Red Deer for appointments or need emergency food. So we will do that as we have those gift cards given to us from the Ministerial Association. We will assist individuals with doing the forms. So normally that's not a general part of FCSS, but for us it mitigates a lot more risk for our residents. So we will assist with the forms for AISH, Alberta Works, and CPP Disability, as well as seniors forms, old age security, guaranteed income supplement, all of those things as well. The Salvation Army also has some great programs through theirs, and because we have the thrift store here, they service the community of Innisfil. So for anyone, they have a utilities program. So if someone has a disconnection notice and there's someone working in the family, they may be able to access some assistance for utilities through the Salvation Army's program. They also have a mattress program. So if they have twin-size mattresses, so if individuals in the community needed a bed, they can also access that support as well. Red Cross we refer to for 72 hours if there is an emergency situation. And we do have a new organization that's regional, Anam Rural Youth Association, based out of Black Falls, that have actually come to Innisfil and worked with some of our higher risk youth one-on-one. It's just one lady with a passion to help youth, and we've relied on her since she's come within the last year for sure. We have a close working relationship with Family School Wellness, Mental Health and Addictions, and the Primary Care Network. Strong interagency again. Some of our programs actually will be featured this week. We have 38 programs and organizations coming to the Interagency Information Fair on Thursday at the Legion. So you're definitely welcome to come and join us for that. That's from 11 to 1 on Thursday. We've hosted the community conversation just to keep some of these issues at the forefront and try and figure out as a collective group of organizations how we can support our residents. Violence Free Innisfil, that's just a local initiative. We co-chair a regional coalition as well as around domestic violence and intimate partner violence. And we promote the fee assistance program as much as possible as well to help with some of those transportation pieces. I think that covers the bulk of it in a nutshell. Any questions? We try and coordinate as much as possible between all of our agencies and our services.
Karen, are you able to kind of summarize all that in a, if it's all right with CEO Becker, and like in a kind of a report and leave it for us? I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about some, Director Jenkins, whoever I'm supposed to ask, just kind of thinking about maybe some advocacy work that we need to do, and you know, when we have the information in front of us and the statistics, it helps with that. And
Sure.
And I guess one question I would have, like the Red Deer Housing Authority, I thought they had 27 doors in Innisfil. Have they?
The last time I
sold
checked, there
some?
was 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I know
Yeah.
like 3 years ago, Bethany was kind of looking at that, and so maybe they've sold some off. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Excuse me. Through to Manager Bradford. How much? So, Karen, you have amazing stats. You have amazing programs, and I'm always so proud of what happens in Innisfil, and you amaze me, all of you, with how busy you are. Do you keep good data on the numbers of people that you're actually working with? You're able to give what at the same time I think is what you're providing that Mayor Barkley's just spoken to?
Yeah, so last year, I think between some of the meetings like that we would have had as like different community conversations and then client walk-ins, I think it was somewhere around 464. And then referrals, I think we were up around 470, somewhere around there, because we will refer individuals to multiple places, right? And when individuals come in, I often give them homework. I get them to check certain places and to do some of the work if they're able to as well, to do those touch pieces. But yeah, we're well over 400 for the last couple of years. Yeah.
Councillor Heistad.
Yeah, thanks. Karen, thanks for your information as always. I see Janice, Councillor Wing had a really good article in the paper a number of weeks ago about, there is issues out there in our own community, and how do we tackle those? And when I sit here and listen, I think there's all these great resources, but I just find that I think it would help us to have a bit of a roadmap as to how do we help people. I look at, some of the rental in town that may be sitting vacant, or some landlords that may not be utilizing those units. How do we work with them, somehow creating housing for individuals that may need it? And I know Councillor Harrison and I were in FCM a week and a half ago, and Edson was recognized for the work that they were doing with people, that were needing temporary shelters, and it was kind of a pod thing. Yep. And I don't know where we're at or if we need to go there, but I think the roadmap for us and for us as a council to identify how do we help you and our peace officers and our manager of, who looks after, peace officers as well as our RCMP, how do we kind of bring it together? Because I think we do a really good job. It's just for me though, sitting in here, it's like we want to do more, but what can we do?
Yeah, and it's a challenge because, you know, we talk to our counterparts in the city, right? And they're like, well, they're full as well, so,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes people move out of the city because they feel safer in a small community, right? But when some of those larger services, for instance, like Canadian Mental Health, are in Red Deer, so then transportation is an issue to get individuals out to the service, right? So like, how do we streamline some of that? And I'm hoping that's where fee assistance and, you know, that extra transportation, even through the PACE bus and van, will maybe help alleviate some of that. But it's a lot of work to do for sure.
Yeah, and I guess my last comment was, you know, maybe it's upon us as council to kind of set forth a strategy, a real set strategy, because of we're kind of going around in circles, doing good work. I'm not criticizing that. It's just that maybe we have a defined strategy, and there's some of us around the room that would get together and to build that. So
Yeah, and Drayton Valley is really taken this up in the last couple of years as well. Yeah. So they started a MAT program, and now I think they're looking at some additional housing options. And so I know my counterpart there, they've been working on housing and homelessness quite a bit over the last couple of years as well. So it might be worth checking into to see what they're doing as well.
thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Also takes other levels of government. Can't just be us.
Yeah.
Councillor Harris.
Yeah, because like FCSS funding doesn't allow that, right? So that requires additional funding. And I know RDN has been a big part of helping some communities like that Rural Development Network. They can help do a study, like a housing and homelessness count and that kind of thing, to get a really good picture of what's happening in your community. And they have funding and stuff sometimes attached to that. So that might be worth checking out as well.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Barclay, and thank you, Karen, for your presentation. It's a great segue, Councillor Hystad, into what I'd like to talk about right now, and it's, last week we just approved our Parkland Foundation business plan. And in there, under fair and flexible outcome number 4, one of the performance measures and indicators is Parkland Foundation will meet with the Red Deer Housing Authority to discuss the community housing offerings in Innisfail and determine the optimal delivery model to serve the local municipalities and residents. And you're quite right, there's only 13 units scattered throughout our community that Red Deer Housing looks after. The question that I have is, have you met with the Housing Authority? Have you had discussions with the Housing Authority, Parkland Foundation? And where do we go to from here? As I sit on the council rep on that foundation, certainly what do we need to bring up for that meeting?
Yeah, I've not had meetings, like face-to-face meetings, but I've tried to keep in touch via email, especially with Red Deer Housing, because it always gives us a feel of what is available. Like if there's a certain situation with a family, I might email them or call them and say, okay, what's the status like for your wait list? So I always try and stay up on that. Just to see what's going on. And I think one of the biggest challenges is the units are only family oriented. And we have a lot of individuals that are single or seniors that are not eligible. So that automatically puts them out of the equation, right? So, you know, more for singles and seniors would also be helpful.
So my takeaway then would be in these discussions that we need to look at some kind of model for singles and yeah. When we talk with the Housing Authority. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, are you hanging around for the rest of the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Afternoon, thank you.
Your Worship, I'll go first. And looking at what protective services or our peace officers are seeing out in our community, and also just through general interactions, what we see when we carry school inspections out and other involvement within the community. There's certainly been an increase in homelessness, and that links in certainly with that multidisciplined approach. It's addictions, mental health, economic factors, all those pieces and family situations. Certainly We had a youth last year who was found camping on a number of occasions in Centennial Park, out in the bush there. We were able, through Karen's support, able to get him some support. But again, this is an individual, and there's lots of these stories out there that we see, is who was on the right path and then COVID hit. His performances and his ability to go to Air Cadets and perform well in school all stopped. He wasn't able to go to school. The unhealthy home environment led him to be living in a tent in Centennial Park. And thankfully, we were able to bring other agencies in and get him some help. And that's something that we see increasingly in the community. People who don't want to be in Red Deer because of the potential for it. They're battling their own addictions and their own mental health issues, and the availability of drugs in that environment is too high for them, so they're moving out into smaller communities and looking for supports there. We have seen people who are dumpster diving. We've quite recently people who generally are just looking for a meal and some shelter, and some of our businesses provide support for that. You know, it's not unheard of for people to provide pizzas and food for these individuals who are at a time in their life where they've got no other supports. And granted, our alternatives are really to provide some support and get them into Red Deer, into those hubs where they can provide some potential for long-term support for them. The peace officers do an outstanding job in interacting, and the first point of call is to find out what that story is. It's not a wear enforcement, wear a uniform. It's provide some form of relationship and engage them and find out what the story is to try and assist them as best we can. It is increasing, unfortunately. We have seen an increase in those activities where probably my first 3 years here, we had one person who was homeless. Now we're seeing it on a regular basis.
Thank you. So I guess from the perspective, obviously, you know, some of the stuff that Gary's talking about, we see the same kind of stuff, obviously, with our members. One of the biggest issues that we have has to do more with the hospital system, with dealing with mental health patients. And it's not even necessarily the amount of mental health calls, it's having to deal with the hospital and just the slow service that they provide to us that really causes us problems. And essentially causes problems for the town itself because it's taking police officers off the street. So wasn't fully prepared to be coming here today. Chris does send his regrets. He had a family issue to deal with today. So I quickly pulled some of our stats, and from the last 2 months, we dealt with 34 mental health complaints. 8 of those calls ended up with our members arresting somebody under the Mental Health Act and having to transport them to one of the hospitals in the area for mental health assessments. Generally speaking, which is not the Innisfail Hospital, generally it's Red Deer, is our designated psychiatric facility. We did have to have 2 instances where we had to transfer the patient to either Calgary or to Edmonton. The big issue that this causes with us, and I'm sure anybody that spent time in any of those major hospitals, they are so backed up, the ambulances are backed up, the police officers are backed up, the ERs are full of people, and our member will sit with a mental health patient for hours. And the unfortunate part about this is that really that is often the town of Innisfail that's paying for that member then to be in the city of Calgary for 4, 5, 6, 7 hours with a patient. And really, like from our perspective, where the system is falling down, it's not necessarily us, it's not even necessarily the hospital itself, but it's Alberta Health Services and their peace officer program. So once there's a peace officer that's able to take over from us, we can leave the patient at the hospital. But it just never seems to be the case that they have that. So we end up spending our time there. And unfortunately, when we have low staffing and we've taken a member off the road, then I'm now calling in overtime to try to backfill. And so now we're paying extra money on top of what's already being paid to get the same amount of policing done, essentially. So. Spoke to the Community Policing Committee last time I was here about RPACT, which is an initiative that's been rolled out provincially with the RCMP and Alberta Health Services. So it has a police officer paired up with a mental health nurse. So far, we've seen them for 5 occurrences in the last 2 months, including this morning, which they're a great resource. Just unfortunately, they're only one team. They only work kind of part of the time. They work a week on, then a week of nights, and not on the weekends. So they are useful when we can get them. We just always can't get them, right? They service a fairly large area from Rocky Mountain House, Sylvan Lake, us, all the way up to Drayton Valley, I believe. So that's pretty much all I have, unless you guys have any questions for
So
us.
Ian, when you take someone to the hospital, are you taking them to emergency? Like
Yeah.
they go through emergency first, right?
Usually, yeah, usually unless it's some sort of, the one where we had to take the patient to Calgary, he had a dedicated specialized psychiatric team because his issues were so complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, we eventually do get to bypass, but if there's no beds, there's no beds.
Right, yeah. So, I don't know, I think what I would like to see us do, CEO Becker and team is, you know, potentially have, I'm going to call it a roundtable at some point in time, bring in mental health. Dr. Campbell reached out to me recently to speak on this, along with, I can't remember her name, Karen, but the head of mental health, AHS Mental Health, and brings them in, people like yourselves, council. I mean, we've got a complex issue here. It's not just one thing that we're going to fix it like that. It's large and it's complex. We need our MLA in that discussion as well. And I would like to just sit around and hear about the issues and what needs fixing and where do we start. And I don't know whether that's a good path to go, CEO Becker. Maybe you can provide some guidance on that if you think that's good or bad, or.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. Obviously good, I would agree, but quite complex. Gary did mention the idea of multi-agency approach, and that's the only way you're gonna, you, but the community, me and you, will make an indent on this issue. Yeah, so we're hearing from a few agencies, Karen representing interagency. There's several other agencies that are directly impacted, and it's certainly a swallow of a lot of resources. On the spot, roundtable sounds fantastic, just to seek to understand. And beyond that, I can't advise any further, beyond thinking of it and talking to the team and the staff, but I think you're on the right track to pull together information and people to have this conversation.
Would you like a motion to that respect, to give you direction on that, or?
Any direction of council would be welcome. I'd say have a conversation and see where that formulates and provide the direction accordingly.
Okay, so Councillor Heistad?
Your worship, well, from my understanding on process, is it make sense to have a motion of some kind to, this is what I was thinking, a motion to, for a houselessness strategy roundtable, make a motion to, to look at solutions helping individuals with addictions and being homeless, something like that.
Okay, I was personally thinking much broader, but like having a discussion around mental health, which includes homelessness, it includes addictions, it includes the issues at the hospital.
Yeah, and I would agree. So do you want me to draft something and then we'll?
Well, I think CEO Becker suggested we kind of go around and have a little discussion first to see where everybody sits, and then we can do a motion. So, Councillor Bates.
I guess I like the thought of a roundtable to start. And the thing that concerns me is I think we have to anticipate the amount this problem's going to increase in the next foreseeable future. It's not getting better, and I think it's going to get a lot worse. Just the reality of the economic situation. Thank you.
Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, and thank you to all of you. I know I maybe raised a bit of a flag a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the community standards bylaw. I think that this is absolutely an issue that we need to have a bigger and broader conversation about. The roundtable is a great idea. It's a great way to get started. We need to include somebody from the feds there because the root of all money for housing starts with them. So Canadian Mortgage and Housing, or whoever it is from them. Councillor Bates is not wrong, and we've had a lot of hidden homelessness going on in Innisfil for a long, long time. Now it's not so hidden anymore, and it's time that we had that conversation about the root causes. These are all indicators of poverty to start with, and yes, mental and physical health is a big piece of it. So yes, I'm supportive of a roundtable. I hope that all of us can be participate there. and it is complicated work, so it starts with that first conversation, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I agree. A few different things that I've been involved with. I mean, it's just become so prevalent and obvious in the last little while. And once again, mirroring what Councillor Bates said, I mean, with the economic forecast, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But the scope of it is frightening, to be very honest, in my mind. I mean, if we're sitting here in 2022 still having this conversation on how to do this, it's obviously nobody's found the solution yet. So I hope that, it will be a constructive exercise, but the scope of it is immense. So I'm very happy to be taking part of it as well.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, economics of Alberta are so good right now, and yet we have these huge issues, and here we are at $100 a barrel WCS, but here we are with things not being looked after. So, Councillor Hystad, do you want to maybe amend the motion? Oh, I'm sorry, CEO Becker? Yeah.
To Councillor Hystad, as a recommendation, and again, I have not yet chatted with your supports, consideration of a motion, if you're going to move into motion, to direct administration to develop a community roundtable discussion, scope of work, and report back to council at a future council meeting. I guess to be so specific, I think we're going to lose touch of not having the input of Karen, Ian, and Chris, and Gary to help formulate your true direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's broad. I think like even somebody like the food bank should be in all that conversation. They can only get food once a month. Maybe that needs to change, and maybe they're not aware of the issues that are going on either. So does that motion?
I think that fits.
Okay.
Thanks, CEO Becker.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. And Karen, before you go. I'll get her started.
And I would like to say thank you, though, like, even for this presentation. Thank you for all your support. We couldn't have done it without all of your support as well.
Well, Karen, and it wouldn't have happened without you and your team as well. And you've made such a huge impact on this community in the last 7 years and brought a lot of programs forward. And I think all those harebrained ideas were great ideas. So thanks for all you've done, and we're going to miss you. So best of luck. Anybody else? Okay.
Your Worship, I'm not sure if everybody's met Ian before. Ian's our new Ops Sergeant. How long have you been here? About 6 weeks now?
A little longer, March,
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, a little while. I'm not getting lost anymore, so.
Okay. Is that microphone on? I'm just kidding. Well, welcome to Innisfail. Glad you're here, and thanks for all you do. Okay, and you too, Manager Lee. Thanks for everything you guys do. Okay, we will move on to 5.1, the CAO report.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I won't review the report. It's there for your review. There's some information there. If you have any questions regarding the report or anything in it or anything outside of the report, within the operations administration, please fire away. Be happy to answer your questions. What I'd like to add into the report verbally is we did have engagement with the Transition Accelerator. If you recall, a week or two ago, we talked about potential training and follow up with Transition Accelerator. They did state that they cannot record the training. And due to timing and how June is filling up, I'd advise council to look at, we'd come back to you with some potential dates where almost all of you could attend, likely into end of August, early September is what I would suggest to you.
Yep, good with that. Is everybody fine with that? Yeah, I think it would be better if everybody can attend for sure. Okay. Anything else, CEO Becker, on your report? No? Okay. Can I please have a motion then for, to approve the CEO report, this information?
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? And we will move on to the 5.2 on the Realtor Developer engagement with CEO Becker.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. Back in April, council made a motion for administration to organize a Realtor Developer Landowner engagement to be held prior to June. Obviously, I feel your expectations and that engagement, really due to competing priorities and workload. Coming back to you in administration with my lead to help start a process, really has a struggle on determining really what council is hoping to achieve to help and then to build out that program. It's kind of struggling to achieve that. I'm hoping this discussion would help provide that direction, and then we advance your engagement as you so desire. Just a few comments in the reports. Really, the question I have to council, and just to seek to understand what you're hoping to achieve, is it more of an information sharing of the town and all the good stuff that through council's leadership? Are you looking towards moving towards a housing development strategy? Are you looking to engage to gather information from stakeholders from the 3 or so different groups that would likely attend? Yeah, and the reason why I'm looking for clear direction is we don't want to be counterintuitive and pull people together without really a true understanding why we're pulling them together. One is you could lose sight of accessing and gathering the information you want to gather, but also we want to make sure the effective use of resources. So obviously, well, not obviously, back in 2017, council looked at and approved through motion a housing discussion paper, and was that to pull the data that was available, and it's attached to this report to outline really what was in that discussion paper, and perhaps the direction would be to update that. I'm not really certain how you wish to proceed. To go along with that discussion paper, council did also, within your draft strat plan, which is hoping to come to you in the next few weeks, talked about housing. That is to attract and retain people, and housing has a big part of that, knowing that our supply, we have some challenges on our supply of housing, as a lot of other areas do as well. Ideally, from your strategic direction, administration that would sit in a room, likely over there, and just start brainstorming out to propose to you how do we move towards achieving council's direction and strategic priority. At this point, due to, again, some of the different priorities that have been allocated to administration, we have not dedicated a long time based on the draft, but we are doing some work related. Of course, Manager Shaw is here to talk about, later in the agenda, the municipal development plan, and there's other pieces associated with housing, and we also have had other engagements with real estate companies, etc. So within the reports, I just took some liberty to support your strat plan, and I put down program, and what I see, obviously the Innisfil Town Council Realtor Developer Landowner engagement, with the identified purpose to engage realtors, housing developers, and landowners, provide information on the town's vision and priorities, and initiate the opportunity for stakeholder feedback on the current housing condition. So with that though, what do we have a defined report to you? Here is the housing condition. We just heard housing is a challenge in one part of the continuum. We're also seeing housing as a challenge at the other part of the continuum and likely within the entire continuum. But I don't have any data to say, here's the problem. I think the housing discussion paper helps identify those areas. So what is the problem? Specifically, what are we trying to address with this engagement? As per the strat plan is to strive for more diverse housing, affordable and accessible housing. We know that's your priority. And how are we trying to achieve resolving that problem? So as I stated, currently administration has not dedicated time to map out the objectives to achieve this goal. Ideally, we'd have some time dedicated to do that, and we certainly will get to that. What I put down as potential objectives on the onset, likely to change and to be added to or deleted based on your feedback, for the town to provide the delegates information. There's a lot going on within the town on the work you're doing and what we're doing to support you. So council strategic priorities, supported by administration action plans, with ECDEV, marketing of the town for investments, and for the town to gather information from the delegates, housing market information. As I stated, it's just not an excuse of competing priorities. I just want to outline some of the other areas that we've been directed and we're taken upon us to initiate engagement, and there's a list there for just a reminder. So again, if anything kind of resurrects with you on what you're hoping to achieve, I'd be happy to take your direction.
Okay, thank you, CEO Becker. I guess for me personally, I think my vision originally was more so to do a presentation about Innisfail because there's a lot of things going on, but having seen this report, I would personally like to see the 17 housing paper updated because at that time there was no Bella Vista. And we also have, of course, the recent sale of the property on the north and wondering what those plans are. Bring in, maybe an update from a Bethany to see where they are, Parkland Foundation. And yeah, I think it's quite broad, but once we have that updated and that data, then it kind of helps us move forward and see where we need to go. And I think we're right, like we're missing it from that whole continuum. But if we don't know where we're at and where we're going, and we don't know what plans are for some of these developers, then it's difficult to make the right decision. So, Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yes, I would agree. I agree that this report it's a very good report. I appreciate it. Having it updated would really help. I think my recollection of the conversation and sort of where I would like to see this consultation go was to invite some of these realtors and developers back to Innisfail to say, you've been reluctant to be here, and we want to tell you about what's happening currently and what our vision is for the future. And this is a good place to do business. We can talk about the work that administration is doing. We can talk about council, but we can, I think just more than anything is to say, the Blackfalds and Sylvan Lakes of the world don't need you anymore. We need you. So we would like to, we would like to see them in Innisfail. And so why would they come here? Well, here's why. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I would agree, but we also got to ask them what they need. Innisfail's doing some great stuff, and in the discussions we've had, we really haven't asked them. The moose is, what do you need to come back to Innisfail? I haven't heard that. Ask the stakeholders what they need, and the town what we need based on our future needs. We heard a presentation from our FCSS director today. We're lacking singles housing, lower cost housing, not $500,000 houses, but lower cost housing, townhouses. I look at Olds, there's a new subdivision there, and I hate to compare communities, but you can't find a house there. They're all right around 1,000 square feet, 1,100 square feet. They're built up. They go up instead of this way, and they're full. They're young families. They've got, you drive through there and there's children everywhere. So if that's what we're trying to attract, then I think we need to take a look at talking with our developers about building those kind of facilities. So that would be my comments. Thank you, Mayor Barkley.
Thank you. Councillor Bates.
So I agree with what the mayor and fellow councillors have said so far, and I think we probably will glean some things from some of these people. They'll bring stuff up, and plus, so it's a two-way. We'll learn something from them as well as giving them that update. I did have one person come to me at one point. Well, I was working on some personal stuff, and he said if there's a way that we could almost endorse some of our real estate and or builders towards using our lots. It was almost self-serving for this person. They wanted the ability to say, if you don't, to their customers, if you don't want to build here on my lot, we have this in with the town, and we can build over there in Napoleon Meadows or wherever. And so if we could, it just came to me that if we could kind of pre-qualify and endorse some of the people that would be doing development and or building in our community on our lots, that it might be of an advantage to them. Because as it sits right now, they have access to it, but they have to go buy it. And I think we could actually create, like I say, some kind of an endorsement. That's just a thought. It's not gonna make or break the whole thing, but I'm sure we'll learn lots of other things.
I was just going to add too, before I forget, because sometimes I do, but I'd also like to add into that housing discussion, or the housing paper, is, you know, we have a lot of empty apartments on the east end of town that are probably 60, 70, 80% empty. And how do we get them involved to either sell, open up, clean up, do something? Because again, this past week I've had another letter from a resident who's not thrilled about the condition of those properties, and we keep hearing that over and over and over again. And here we need affordable housing, and that might be part of the solution, but they just sit there. Anyway, Councillor Hystad.
I like what you just said, Mayor Barkley. I think that's part of that roundtable, dealing with, you know, the previous discussion. But I also look at this, you know, when I was on council in 2010, I was reading the paper, and I think there's an opportunity there, but I think I see it as a roundtable, and you know, just an upfront conversation as how do we get you back. And I agree that you know, some of these houses in the cities or smaller communities are going straight up. They're going, you know, so they're more affordable. And I just see it as an opportunity for us. But I do agree with you on your comments on the rental suites and some of the landlords that actually are not looking after those properties. And how do we actually help out those that are wanting to move to Innisfil and then maybe buy that first house that might be, you know, reasonably priced, not at the $500,000 mark. So thanks for your work, administration.
Maybe also, CEO Becker, you know, having this discussion, and whether that would be with developer realtors or maybe even outside as, you know, administration, is also, is there opportunity to develop something where you maintain, you know, it's like Westwood Court, you maintain ownership of the land and you're building houses, so now the housing is affordable because you're now renting the lot. You're not having to come up with another $120,000 to buy a lot, so kind of like a land trust or whatever you'd like to call it. And there's nothing wrong with owning land forever and ever. It's a great investment. It's perpetual income, goes on forever. And also, you know, what can we do? Maybe you can do some research. What can we do to get people that are sitting on these apartments, fourplexes and stuff, to do something? Like, is that, some kind of an incentive or some kind of a de-incentive to keep them the way it is, I guess, like empty property tax or something, I don't know, but maybe that can be part of the update of the 2017 paper as well. So you're probably looking for, are you clear what we're kind of looking
Yeah,
for?
it's,
Okay. Yeah.
thanks, Mayor Barkley. I think it's clear. Yeah, what I'm hearing is, of course, it's 2017 housing paper. Maybe that we can put that on our action item as part of a suggestion to achieve your priorities. However, I'm hearing the engagement is the focus and ASAP type of thing. I know we're getting into that zone of summer. Again, my apologies for not achieving your expectation. Maybe, based on your direction, maybe, again, early September-ish would be the best. But I'm looking for your advisement on this, but certainly we can have some time to come back with a full detail scope of what this engagement would look like, and you could say, change this. This is your directive. Want to make sure your scope is defined, not just attending. So give us a little time to come back to you in likely in early July or mid-July. Here's what we propose as a scope, and you can rubber stamp it, and then we can start sending out invitations for early fall.
Yeah, I think that timing would be fine if everybody's okay with that. And, even like as Councillor Wing said, this is about Innisfail. Like this is Innisfail and who we are and the opportunities that are out there. We've had lots of feedback from businesses and potential expansions and things that are going on that needs to be part of the presentation that's done to the realtors and developers. Because I don't think, maybe the in-town people understand it, the realtors, but I'm not sure the out-of-town people really understand what's going on or are aware of opportunities. So you'd like a motion?
Just a motion for information, Mayor
Okay.
Barth. I think we captured the dialogue from council. I appreciate your time on this.
Okay, Councillor Wing.
I would make that motion, Mayor Barkley.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? No? All in favor? Great, thank you. And we'll move on to 5.3, the council action control. Nobody has any questions, and I would ask somebody please make a motion to accept this as information.
I have one question, Mayor Barkley, through
Yes.
to operations. I've had a few inquiries regarding the sound barrier wall along Highway 2A and wondering when construction was going to start. And the second part of that is, are you going to save the trees, the existing Lombardy poplars that are growing there? Thanks, Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. The construction itself is scheduled to start in August. The contractor that we've hired, Lakeview Contracting out of Sylvan Lake, has already started their sub in casting the concrete panels themselves.
Okay.
It was about a 3-month process to get all those panels put together. So they were deferring their start date until they were at that 90% mark with the panels. The trees go. There are a few in there that have died over the last few years with weather conditions. We will be taking those out ourselves with no immediate plans to replace, but everything that's living and healthy right now, other than some minor trim, is expected to stay as is.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll have somebody make a motion then to accept this as information, please.
I'd so move.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. All in favor? All right, perfect. We will move on to 6.1, local government fiscal framework with Director Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barkley. So you may have heard the last couple months that the government did create a new grant funding that is set to replace MSI, which is called the Local Government Fiscal Framework, or LGFF. While we do have the Local Government Fiscal Framework Act that kind of determines the amount of money and how that will kind of be distributed, but the actual fundamentals of the program has not been decided yet. So they have sent out a request to affected parties, municipalities and such, to do a bit of background and workup. One primarily is a survey that they've asked us to do. So it's actually due today at 6 o'clock. So we're going to go through it right now and submit it as we go through it. So
A lot of the questions, you're going to answer them anyway, right?
yeah, Mayor Barkley, I will be honest, most are more not necessarily about the program design from council's perspective, but more from an administration's perspective. So, but we'll go through and we'll stop at each question to make sure everyone's comfortable. It won't take long, I promise.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Barkley. Can I ask, when did the government send this survey out?
Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Harrison, I believe it was in late June that we received it.
Late?
June? May, sorry, I'm sorry.
So
My
we've only
apologies.
had a week or so
Yeah,
to respond. I think it's very unfair for the government to talk about a funding program this important, and you've got a week to respond. And it's not our fault, we'll certainly go through it, but somewhere, somebody should tell somebody in the government, that's completely unacceptable. Thank you.
It could have been done last week. We could have brought it last week, but it was already quite a full agenda, so we did not bring it forward at last week's agenda.
Yeah, and I also think Councillor Harrison, this is just one part of it. I
Yeah.
know what the Alberta Muni's Summer Caucus, it's also on the agenda, so this is just one step in get feedback, and there'll be more opportunities as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the first question is whether or not the MSI capital application form is complex or challenging to complete. I said no. So there was another question if we had said yes that we are now skipping. So now the next question is, do you find the statement of funding and expenditures, or the SFE, complex and challenging? So this is the form that we complete to report annually on the funds that we receive. So I also said no to that. So I said, under the current timeline, we do have to submit the SFE by May 1st for the previous year. And I said that that timeline was appropriate because that gives us enough time to complete our year end and make sure all those numbers are finalized before we do have to submit this. And I said no, that right now they don't need to change the way the SFEs are formulated, that they capture enough information as it is. Was there any questions on any of those or any issues? No? Okay. So, yes.
I guess, there, my mic, if my mic works. So, Director Vickers, everything has been, easy for us to do. Is that because we have really good systems, or is that because we have a really good director in place? And if something happens to the person, but do you know the risk around being people-driven as opposed to systems-driven? So,
true. So in the SFE, Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Wing, we only do one for the entire amount of money that we submit, and we report on each individual project as a separate line. And there's only about 5 or 6 columns, and it's total project cost that was allowed, total current costs, costs that are funded by another source, costs that are funded by MSI, and net money left. So it is fairly simple from my opinion. I don't necessarily think that it's good employees. I think that most municipalities should feel the same way, in my opinion.
we collect that data as it, I guess is what I'm saying, is it's not
Yes.
something you're trying to put together, it's collected. Okay.
Correct, yes. Okay. So under the current MSI plan, it does allow for some municipalities to save up funds for larger projects. Currently, it is a 5-year maximum that you can save up funds for. However, I did indicate that if there are some municipalities that wanted to save up for longer than 5 years, that was, yeah, it was up to them, right? Okay, so some of the key elements that are currently in the MSI program design, and which ones would we like to see continued in LGFF? So we picked up to 5, so I have chosen mine, but we can go through each one. The ability to save up for larger projects, obviously I picked yes for that one. I did not pick the next two, so ability to pay projects with future years funding or restructuring policy. I didn't pick those. But I did pick the ability to start projects in advance of ministerial approval. And I picked that for a number of reasons, the main one being we submit these in April or May of each year. Sometimes it could take 4 months, 5 months to get approval for those projects. Well, we've already started them, right? So it is really nice that as long as they're submitted in good faith, then they will be approved by the minister. So I did not choose the ability to fund borrowing costs, but I know some municipalities do that. They actually use their MSI as their debenture repayment each year. The ability to amend project funding and scope, we do this quite regularly. The last one, we just even did it for the sound wall when it went from 750,000 to $1 million, and with a different material as well. So that does happen. A broad range of eligible project categories. I do think the broader the range, the better. So, and the last one I picked was the ability to combine grant funding with other grant programs, which they call grant stacking. We do this quite regularly with our MSI and federal gas. I know it's called something else, but I'm not quite sure at the top of my head. But we do want to maintain this same ability, right? Otherwise, we would be, some of our projects could be affected in the future. Does anyone have any questions on that? So now they're asking which ways could LGFF be changed or improved so that it was more efficient than our current MSI capital program. So again, select up to 5. I've actually only selected 3 currently. So the first one I did was expedite the application and an amendment approval process, just because there is times when it can be quite lengthy. The second one I chose was remove the condition to expend annual allocations within 6 years. Again, if we're allowing people to save up for many years, then they can spend future years funding, right? That would be up to each individual's municipal council and administration to make those decisions. And the last one I picked was just simplify communication and project recognition requirements. There's not very many right now currently with MSI, so likely it would be fairly similar in the new LGFF.
May I ask you, Director Vickers, what about the first one?
Expand project eligibility. There's not a whole lot that's not allowed, like you can't buy land with the current MSI, but we can choose that one if you'd like.
I don't know. You're the expert, so whatever you think.
To this date, I haven't come across a grant program or sorry, a project that was not eligible under the current MSI. Again, I think land, in the next couple questions, there's some things about asset management and disaster relief that can affect certain things. But if you'd like, we can pick that one too, just to put it on there. Yep, let's click it. Was there anyone else? Anything else?
Mayor Barkley, if I might ask, the very last one, maintain the current MSI program design. So they're asking us if we want to keep the MSI as opposed to, are we satisfied with the change that they're proposing, or do we want to say, nope, we want to stay with what we have?
So this is not how they determine the funding allocation. This is just the actual design work on the type of projects they approve. So not anything on how much money we're going to get or how that design is. So it's relatively simple in my point of view. So a few things to change. I think making it faster to apply and get those approval processes is important. Other than that, like, we don't want to eliminate the grant stacking. We don't want to reduce the number of capital project submissions per year. That would get frustrating for maybe some larger municipalities who submit many. Yeah. Okay. So how could your selected actions from the previous question be improved? Was there any? Okay. Okay, we'll come back to that when it's later. So. Oh, just save it. Can you save it and go next?
If I save it, it tells me to probably have the answer. Just put something in there for now, yeah.
Okay, just put NA for now, yeah. Okay. So asset management, what tools, resources, programs, conditions could be used in the LGFF program to best support asset management practices in our community. So we did sit down last week and talk as SLT about this. So we've chosen only a couple. Make asset management costs eligible for LGFF funding. We chose that one, as well as the second one. We also liked the fifth one down, enable local governments to receive a greater percentage of LGFF funding if they fulfill defined asset management goals, which is quite, other than that, we didn't really choose any more. Is there anyone there that anyone would like to talk about? Because just note, anything we choose, if they did go with it, it could impact us if we're not fulfilling some of those taglines as well. Okay, we're good. Disaster resiliency. So what's the best way for LGFF to encourage local governments to build infrastructure that is more resilient to natural disasters? We chose the first four. So ensure the ability to cost share with other disaster resiliency program continues, that the guidelines provide information about best practices, tools, and resources. The project eligibility descriptions in the program include examples that demonstrate resilience, and project eligibility expanded to fund projects associated with natural infrastructure such as wetlands and fire breaks, which that'll be really good for, maybe not us specifically, but there are some municipalities that would really affect. So that's what we said for that. Was there any questions about that? No? Maybe? Okay. So what aspects of the current MSI capital program make your project management practices more challenging? They don't really. I know I talked to Steve and I said, is there anything about this that makes it challenging? The only thing that I request from them when I'm doing new project is like how many kilometers of road, how many kilometers of pipe. That's really the only thing that kind of impacts like operations or recreation. But yeah, so really nothing. So just NA I think is good. So are there ways in which the LGFF program administration can be designed to better align with your local government's project management practices? So we didn't come up with too much anything here either. In what ways could the design of the program help address the needs of communities with sustainability, viability challenges? It's really not applicable to us. I think they're coming from like a financial sustainability. This would affect some municipalities whose like their assets are like really bad, right? Yeah. So they asked about outcomes. Do we currently collect outcome-related information? An example, they give us 10 kilometers new lane roadway has resulted in a 10% decrease in accidents and improved commute times by 30%. We currently don't collect any of the information like that, so we said no. Do you foresee any challenges related to collecting outcome-related information? We did say yes. The additional time and costs, like what kind of outcomes would they be looking for? How would we collect it? How would we know if a new road is reducing accidents? But that's all that we kind of talked about when we talked about it. because we can get the information, it's just gonna take someone's time to do it, right, so. Okay. Do we collect infrastructure condition assessments? We do. LGFF will be administered using an online administration system. Thinking of the online system we use now, do you have any concerns or suggestions for improvement? And I said the current system is very easy to use now. So they're thinking about moving it to the My Alberta Digital ID for business. So they just want to know, we do already currently have a MADIB account for Government of Alberta with, I think, 4 or 5 different user access. So yes, we do have that. And just the current online administration system currently only has 2 reports. One is a financial summary report and one is a project application report. Are these reports sufficient to you? We've never used these reports in any kind of official capacity, so I said yes, unless council would like to see more reporting come out of the LGFF. No? Then yep. Very good. So then it's just any final thoughts from council? Show us the money. Yeah. But I have nothing more to say. I kind of hope they keep the application process fairly similar to what it is now because it is quite simple to use. Yeah, and that's it.
Thank you, Director Vickers, for all that input.
No, I think we're good.
Great.
Perfect.
Glad that Innisfail has partaken in that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion on that or do anything? No. No. Okay, there's a recommended motion here. That's okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, we will move on to the event stage with Director Jenkins, 7.2.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barkley. So looking to provide council with an overview and follow up with some of our discussion on the provision of an event stage for use for community events. So council allocated $25,000 in the 2022 operating budget for the purchase of an event stage to be used for town and community events. In March, council provided further direction to administration on the scale and capabilities of the stage, with the understanding that the initial and operating costs of a more elaborate setup would likely be substantially higher than the original budget. So following that discussion, we went out and did some research on other municipalities and potential options for a larger stage. So the probably most similar example based on administration's understanding of council's thoughts is the town of Hinton. So they do provide rental of a range of event supplies. This is largely due to their remote community location where access to these types of units can be difficult and expensive. So they have portable staging as well as a show mobile trailer unit available to community groups and individuals. The show mobile unit, which is the sort of the portable trailer unit that there's pictures of within the package, was purchased 15 years ago, at which time they received a CFIP grant to fund a portion of that. The unit generates about $10,000 in annual revenue and requires between $1,000 and $3,000 in maintenance. So users must be provided with training on operation and must provide a professional sound and lighting technician in order to utilize the unit. We did find some other large centers, the City of Windsor, City of Prince Albert, that also rent mobile or platform staging for use in the community as well as for their own events. So we did, just as part of this research, obtain a quote from a local rental company for the provision of some staging options, just to get an idea of what local event organizers would be looking at if they were going to rent this equipment locally. So a 16 by 16 stage with delivery setup and audio equipment is about $4,300. That's without any lighting equipment. Also, there's the larger stage trailer with delivery setup and audio is about $7,500 for a one-day event. So when we look at some of the current events we have, the events don't all occur in the same location. So we have said that probably the mobile stage appears to be the most practical option as opposed to a staging component setup. The stage size on the unit can be expanded for larger events. So there's two options that we've come across just to give council a bit of a ballpark idea of what they would be looking at. So there's the show mobile trailer, which again, the brochure is included in your package. That runs at about $175,000. That's the base. It would likely be more if you're providing audio and lighting and different add-on packages. And then the Mega Stage trailer, which Mega Stage is a Canadian company. And again, you're at about $100,000 for the base trailer, and then you'd be looking to add on those audio and lighting components. So additional budget consideration for maintenance as well as operations of and administration of the stage would have to be considered as part of this endeavor as well. So if council's uncertain about the capital expenditure, we've talked internally about the potential to explore maybe a grant program that could help to offset stage rental costs for events on an event by event basis. Currently we talk about our community grant program. However, that doesn't provide funds for annual events. So maybe there's an opportunity to set up something where there's funding available for some of these more regular events. We also wanted to bring to council's attention, there is a local individual who is looking to create a mobile stage. It's sort of in the early stages. We're not sure exactly what that's going to look like or what it is going to, if it's going to be useful for all of the various events we have. But that is a potential service that could be available to some groups as well as the town for some of our events. So really right now, potential outcomes is council looks to allocate additional capital and operating funds for the 2023 budget, and administration will put together more detailed plans for operations and administration of a unit, or we can forego the purchase of the stage and explore other options to incentivize and support groups requiring this type of equipment, or to direct us otherwise.
Thank you, Director Jenkins. So question with company who's looking at building something similar. Are we able to collaborate with them and maybe potential partnership or design process, et cetera? And
I think so. I've had one conversation, sort of indicated that council was having this conversation, talked about sort of safety and design requirements that the town would require in terms of utilizing a piece of equipment like that. But if there was someone else providing such a service, it would certainly take the weight of that operation and management component off of the town.
yeah, and I guess, when it started at 25, that's one thing, but now there were 175 plus options. It's another. And I think, if that was something we wanted to look at down the road, you don't have to be a budget item, but also I guess I would like to see somewhat of a business case for it. Like, where is it going to be used? How many times do we think it's going to be used? Or are we better to put something permanent in a Centennial Park as an example, if we really wanted a stage? So I don't know, I'm personally a little bit unsettled with the 175 in the middle of summer, and we're probably won't be ready this year anyway, so take our time and see what comes out of this other conversation.
If I can add, and really, they didn't necessarily have an ask for the community, but I think if there was you know, a level of commitment that the town said, well, yes, we would commit, you know, once we know what the product is gonna be, that we would use it for Canada Day, the parade, and, you know, 3 events, so that they would at least have that level of commitment, that they know that they're gonna have it rented out on those occasions.
I would even like to see you, you know, have further discussion as far as even what our needs would be for the stage. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's large enough, it's the sound system, the lights, so it's something that's usable for us for our community events. And Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, through to Director Jenkins. Thank you for all your work that you did on this. I mean, it was definitely in the initial stages really wanting to push for this, but I as well have had the opportunity to have conversations with the individual you're mentioning, and from what I understand through our discussion is that for a number of other community events, it will really fit the bill, because they're going to have a sound room in it and different things, and that it would, I think, really suit the community's needs on several different levels, and also save the town a substantial amount of money, which I think right now is a really good thing. I also think taking the logistics of the repair, maintenance, and otherwise out of your hands into private hands, I think is a really good idea. I definitely, I think at this point, I stand behind forgoing the purchase of a stage and exploring the options for maybe some sort of grant funding program for some of the different festivals, events, and otherwise that are in the community, and also, you know, extending a dialogue, or maybe have the individual come and maybe make a presentation to the town as to what their plans are, because I know they were still in the initial stages of the design on it. So, thanks.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I would agree, option 2, look for grant funding. I had 2 questions. What's the approximate number of groups that will be renting it? We know what our community events are. How many groups out there that would rent it at $4,300 a day or a weekend?
I guess we haven't gone into the business case of how many groups, and I guess it would depend on what we end up with as a product, whether it's the towns or a private individual, as to who would utilize it. But off the top of my head, there's probably at least 4 or more other events that would likely be looking for something on top of sort of 3 to 4 town events.
Okay. Yeah, to go out and spend $175,000 on a stage and not have any rental or revenue generation, it's, I think we need to look for a grant. I think at this point in time, we've been spending a lot of money in the last 8 months on various things, and I think this here would be a priority 2 or 3 on my list at this point. So we do have now, you know, we have Centennial Park, we have a gazebo there. It's sufficed for the last number of years for Canada Day. So it's not this is not a do or die thing. So I think we need more information through the administration to get more information and develop that business case. I agree with Councillor Dale that we need to have the community groups and get some type of commitment from these user groups that they're going to rent the stage if we go ahead and purchase or build one. And what's the cost of the add-ons? You don't have to answer that today, but the stage is $175,000. I bet you it's $100,000 for lights and sound. So by the time we're done here, we're going to have a big Valley Jamboree stage. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Well, that's a better idea. Councillor Maceras.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Through to Councillor Dunham. Councillor Dunham, what do you do for the Pride weekend? What kind of equipment do you have and do you use for that?
Mayor Barkley, to Councillor Mazaros. We, through another committee that I sit on, we found out about a stage that existed within a social organization here in town that we actually are renting for Pride this year, and we will be utilizing it for other things down the road as well. So there is one that exists, but it's very, very basic, which is just a stage. We'll be building stairs and actually encasing it in that all ourselves. So.
Thank you.
think Canada Day 2 Director Jenkins came from Calgary Stampede, right? The big stage that was here a couple of years before COVID.
Yes, the one that came, that stage is not coming this year,
Yeah,
but.
no, understand, yeah. Yeah, so maybe, can we just accept this as information and you kind of know where we're at, I think, and, okay, so I'll have somebody make that motion, please.
I so move that we accept this report for information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harrison. Any further comments or? Okay, all in favor? Okay, and next, 7.3, Director Jenkins with the Southwest Residential Commercial Planning Design Scope.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. So we're looking to present a proposed scope of work for a design process for the creation of land use and design concepts for the Southwest residential and commercial area. So again, the subject lands consist of approximately 12 acres directly adjacent to Highway 54 to the west, existing residential development to the north and east, and industrial development to the south across 42nd Street. The lands were originally identified for future residential and commercial development in 1990 upon the adoption of the Napoleon Lake Area Structure Plan. That ASP provides policy direction for both the commercial site and the residential area. The lands were zoned at that time as a combination of R1B, R1C, and highway commercial, and that zoning remains in place today. The 1998 Municipal Development Plan land use map also indicates the same land uses, and that has been carried forward and reflected in the 2004 and 2007 updates of the MDP. So the adjacent residential properties were subdivided in 1994, with homes primarily being built between 1995 and 1998. Back in 2010, Council was presented with a proposed MDP and LUB amendment to provide for the development of 24 duplex bungalows. That motion was defeated, referencing a previous council motion from 1998 that indicated the lands would remain as open green space. Then in 2024, the council of that day passed a motion to enter into a first right of refusal agreement with a potential developer for the lands. That agreement has since expired with no action on the agreement. So then in the 2022 budget deliberations, there was an identification of the need to pursue a planning process to explore the use of these lands. So an estimated $10,000 was earmarked for this project. Administration's been working with a consultant to develop a scope of work that would evaluate the site, explore the history, vision, and expectations of council and the community to create a development concept. So that process would consist of 3 general phases, being background and analysis, administrative discussions, review of zoning, applicable plans, servicing that's in place, followed by concept development with council through a design charrette process and a review, again, of the vision and expectations of council. From there, they would refine design initiatives and review with council and administration, and then proceed to having stakeholder collaboration to receive input on options and finalize a concept. From there, depending on what the outcome of that feedback and final plan would be that further development or open space, it would be determined whether we needed to look at how the lands would be developed and or marketed. So at this point, the funds are available within the operating budget. We just wanted to discuss that scope of work with council. We know we have had some interest in the lands, and just trying to develop a firm concept so that we're able to discuss with potential purchasers as to what we're looking for there. And then in terms of strategic plan alignment, I see that wasn't updated, but this does align with strategic opportunities of striving for more diverse, affordable, and accessible housing to remain a competitive and attractive place for people to move.
Thanks, Director Jenkins. This seems like it fits very well with the updating the 2017 housing paper as well, so it kind of all morphs together. So I could please ask someone to make the recommended motion.
I'll make that recommended motion. Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yes. That council approves the proposed scope of work for the creation of a land use and design concept for the Southwest residential commercial area to be funded from the 2022 operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, Your Worship, would it take to Director Jenkins, how long would that study take to complete?
We would look, if we started right away, we'd be looking to do that background and analysis through the summer, and then look to be in the fall with the public, that part, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so call it
Was-
6 to 8 months, maybe?
Okay, I was just kind of curious how long. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, through to Director Jenkins, and more of a comment. There's some signage down in that area that refers to a park area. So on the diagram here, where is the park area, or is it the whole 12 acres?
I'm not
The
sure which.
signage right now is right on the corner. I don't know what. Yeah, it's up. Wish I had a pointer. I could show you where it is. It's right up in there. Yeah, it's right there. It's that piece. Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's where the sign is. And I guess my comment is that this will be going out to the public, but have we created an expectation with those residents down there? Because when you come around the corner, you see this sign that says no vehicles allowed within the park area. So have we created something there that?
Well, I think you're dealing with resident expectations down there in general, being that it's been left as an open space. Those signs will be there because people were driving across the grass to access the back of their parcels where they don't have a lane, so that's more why those types of signs are there. I think this entire process, and that's why we will have to have, you know, that public and stakeholder involvement in it, is that I'm sure there's a lot of expectations from the property owners who have lived there since 1995 as to what that space is and what it should be, so.
Thank you. Maybe we should white out the word park. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Thank you, and I'll ask Manager Shaw to come forward, and we'll go into 7.4, the property sale at 4815 50th Street.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This item was before you last week, and you asked us to take a look at a few items, and so we have done that. With respect to the Municipal Government Act, there are various sections that deal with the sale of land by municipalities. In particular, Section 70, which says that if the municipality is to transfer or grant an estate or interest in land for less than its market value, or a public park or recreation or exhibition grounds, then the proposal must be advertised. And there's provisions in the MGA also in terms of saying like how long it has to be advertised. Now, this particular property is a tax recovery property that we've had for a few years. So Section 425 applies to any potential sale of the land. Now, a municipality that does become an owner can dispose of the parcel by selling it at a price that is as close as reasonably possible to the market value of the parcel, by selling, by depositing in the account referred to in Section 427, and that relates to the tax recovery, an amount of money equal to the price at which the municipality would be willing to sell the parcel in the Clause A. So 427 then goes on to stipulate that the money has to be put into an account that is established particularly for that particular function. And so then in Section 2, it says that the following must be paid first and in the following order. So any remedial costs relating to the parcel, the tax arrears in respect of the parcel, any lawful expenses of the municipality in respect of it, expenses owing to the Crown, and an administration fee of 5% for the amount paid for the parcel payable to the municipality. Now, to date, the municipality has spent about $47,000 on the parcel. That includes the demolition of a former residence and cleanup and whatnot. So we do have a significant investment in the parcel itself. So if we are to look at selling the land, we should at least be looking at trying to recoup the expenses that we have occurred simply as good stewards of the land. So with respect to Section 606, this deals with the advertising requirements for the municipality. And as I indicated to you before, we do have that cost of $47,000. Since the last time that we talked to you, we've also become aware of the need to relocate the water shutoff valve from within the street right away to inside the property. This could be an expense of $6,000 to $8,000. Now that could be between the town and the potential purchaser as to who pays for that, but we would certainly have to make any potential purchaser aware that this is a requirement that we need to look at. We did reach out in terms of seeking what the cost of an appraisal would be. That's between $1,200 and $1,500 plus GST, plus a $35 mileage cost. And if we were to go that route, then we would probably have a result back in about a month or so, given their lead time to prepare the appraisal and prepare a report on it. So we know that the assessed value of the land is $62,000. Now, the primary difference between the assessed value and market value is their purposes. If you or I are buying a property where reasonable people, the seller wants to sell the land for their interests, we want to buy the land for our interests, we're both reasonable people, therefore we're going to decide that this is a reasonable cost. Whereas with respect to an assessed value, the assessed value of the property doesn't come into play during the sales process. Instead, it's only used for tax purposes. So when we're looking at what kind of value should we have on this particular property, we should be, looking at recovering the costs that we've put into here so far, as well as any other potential costs, but also perhaps to determine what its actual market value is. And so that's why the two motions that I have before you tonight is that, one, council directs administration to respond to the potential purchaser about their offer for this property, and two, that we do obtain an appraisal to determine its market value.
Okay, thank you, Manager Shaw. Okay, I think we'll start with a little bit of discussion before we get to motions, because it will maybe impact the motions that are made. So question I have was, are you able to get a real estate evaluation as opposed to an appraisal? Mm-hmm. No?
It's likely not going to hold up
Okay.
as your rationale to be
Okay.
market value if it is substantially
Yep.
different than the assessed value.
Okay, no, fair enough. Okay. Okay, does anyone want to make a recommended motion, one of them?
I'll make the easy one.
Okay.
I move that we respond to the potential purchaser about their offer and this information. And then I'll offer a comment, or a question, I guess, with respect to the value, the assessed value versus the appraisal. Do we have any significant reason to think that the assessed value isn't near the market value?
I guess the only challenge on this property is it's kind of an odd block there where the properties are zoned commercial, even though the balance of the block is currently used for residential purposes. So I think we might get some interesting comments from the appraiser that maybe aren't reflected in the tax assessor's evaluation, but that would be my only thoughts.
Yeah, I just personally hate to spend the amount there when we're, anyway, leave that other motion on the table.
So like when you say, Councillor Bates, to respond to the offer, what I would like to see is an actual offer to purchase from an interested seller, not an email, something much more formal that can be countered if necessary. And
Mayor and Council, certainly we can go back to the person to ask them for like a formal offer, like either on letterhead or some other type of formal type of response, as opposed to the email train that we've been working with so far.
An actual offer to purchase, an offer to purchase
So
contract.
if we all agree, I see a lot of head nodding. Should I rephrase that to be, put the chicken and the egg in the right order and just say I'll move that we ask the email provided offer to become formal in order to give it a proper answer?
Mayor Barkley, I think that would come, I guess, it's not really like, are we selling the property? And if we wish to, administration is recommending we need to advertise the MGA, we need to determine the value of it through market. And then we can be in a place to negotiate. So individual has inquired about the property, which is generating your direction.
Okay, so I guess this agenda is public knowledge, so my motion, if it was the original motion, it would allow you to formally send back in the email the information in this agenda saying that the offer is probably not going to be accepted by council for all of these reasons.
Putting me off the hook here a little bit, Gordon, but so right now, again, we have somebody inquire about the property, and typical engagement is we had moved to help the individual to come up with an offer. So right now, we're saying we have to do a few things before we can even take an offer. So I would recommend don't provide the direction to engage with the potential person. Like do you want to get appraisal on the property or not? And so if the person's interested, they may provide an offer based on what Gordon's going to tell them. He's going to say, hey, potential purchase offer, property purchase. This is where we're at. This is council direction. We've been directed to get an appraisal on the property. That's what likely will be the engagement that will occur following this report. So to make it
Okay, so
easier,
I do understand then the reason for the, yeah.
in Gordon's defense, he's just looking for direction to respond back to the individual that has inquired. You know, don't even make the motion. We're still going to respond back, but Gordon's asking for clear direction. So I'd focus on number 2 motion, direction, and we'll communicate regardless if you do number 1 or not. So.
Did you want to amend the motion, Councillor
So do you want number 2 first? I'll move that we direct administration to obtain an appraisal on 4815 50th Street To determine its market value, and making this motion, I would withdraw the previous one.
Okay, thank you. So we have to have the appraisal in order to sell the property, is what you're saying?
I guess unless you have a number in mind that we can go back with, that you're comfortable with.
Well, personally, I don't think we even have a real offer to start with. Like, until we get a real offer, to me, it's all a kind of a moot point. It's great to send an email, but that's not an offer, so. See you, Becker.
Mayor Barkley, and if you just said $60,000, like, basically you're breaching the MGA. We're being tight on our advice to you. If you want to offer 40,000, you're still in breach because we don't have appraised value, and you could be challenged.
Okay.
As long as you're aware of the challenge, you can say whatever you want and give the direction that you wish.
Okay, then I guess we'll get the appraisal. Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, I'm in favor of the appraisal. The property's been there for quite some time. I walk by it every day, and actually, frankly, I don't think it's moved because it's, you know, people can't even look in there when you walk by it or drive by it. You rip by going 50 kilometers an hour, or some young people in town, probably 60 or 70, and you cannot see into the property. I think half the battle is cleaning up the property where it's presentable, and then it may present that opportunity. I don't think it's going to kill us to wait it out. Just my history, thanks.
It did have a for sale sign on it for quite a time.
We did have it listed. I believe the last last list price we had on it was $59,900.
Yeah.
And we had little to zero interest on it, so when it expired, we sort of thought, well, maybe we're gonna have a different approach, but we haven't really.
Yeah, it is a difficult property, just transition. But anyway, we have a motion on the table, so all in favor of the appraisal route? Perfect. Thank you.
And just, sorry, I shouldn't say anything, but I would anticipate then, based on the appraisal, we'll engage with the potential purchaser and seek for an offer, and then come back to you with the offer plus the appraisal.
Yes, please.
Does that work?
Okay, thank you, Manager Shaw. And moving on to 7.5, industrial land sale with Director Jenkins.
Okay, so we have the first formal purchase agreement for the Southwest Industrial Lands. So we're looking for council approval of Lot 15. Care if you want to scroll to, I think it's page 107 of the agenda, has the map in case some councilors aren't familiar with the particular parcel we're looking at. So the corner of 61st Ave and 36th Street, so directly, yeah, right there. Oh, she had her hand on it. There you go. So that is Lot 15. So 4.19 acres in the amount of $670,400 to the Innisfail Municipal Seed Cleaning Plant. Yeah, so we're just looking for formal approval of the sale from council today.
Director Jenkins, can I just ask you one question? Like, going through the offer to purchase, there's one lawyer representing both parties.
Yes.
Have we had any independent legal advice, or?
So that is so we approached
Oh, okay,
the
that's
lawyer,
ours. Okay.
and the purchaser has agreed
Okay.
to utilize the same representation. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Wing?
Mayor Barkley, I would like to move then that council approve the sale of Lot 15, Block 71, plan to be determined for $670,400 to the Innisfail Municipal Seed Cleaning Plant, LTD, in accordance with the terms of the purchase agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No, all in favor? Okay, thank you, and thank you for all your hard work on this file. It's great to see, and so we will move on to 7.6, the Town Chamber MOU with Manager Shaw.
Mayor and Council, you're aware that you adopted an economic development strategy, Power of Place. One of the tactics outlined in that was to prepare an MOU between the town and the chamber. Since that adoption, there has been discussions between town representatives and chamber representatives to come up with an MOU. We also charged our economic development consultant, Factor 5 group, to prepare a draft MOU, and you've seen that draft previously. The chamber board has also seen that draft, and at the working group last week, there was general discussion about the MOU, and there were some very minor changes to it. So what you have before you tonight is the MOU that we would like to have the town adopt as part of the economic development strategy and fostering our relationship with the chamber and basically moving forward with our economic development strategy. So the motion that you have tonight is that Council approves the Memorandum of Understanding between the Innisfail and District Chamber of Commerce and the town as Innisfail as presented.
Thank you, Manager Shaw. Are you able to tell Council what the two minor changes were? I believe it was 2 words. And sorry, see, it was a tough question, I know, but just it wasn't significant, I guess, just so all of Councillor Wing, yes,
No
you were
problem.
there.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, so the first discussion was around the advocacy. So under the purpose, point 2, advocacy, the chamber just asked that line or that sentence reflect local business advocating on behalf to municipal and county government, being conscious of the fact that the Alberta Chambers of Commerce do the advocacy work relative to provincial and federal government. And then the final correction or the final point was in the very last term and scope of agreement, they just requested one word to be changed to say the chamber will have an opportunity to request financial support to continue and or expand its role. So nothing major. Just some clarification.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted all the council to realize it wasn't anything major that was changed, so I'll have somebody please make the recommended motion.
Mayor Barkley, I would like to make that motion, please.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? No? Okay, all in favor? Great, thank you. And we'll move on to 8.1, the Southwest Industrial Park shallow utility options with Curtis.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Right. So we wanted to update council on some of the options for shallow utility options in the Southwest Industrial Park. We're looking for direction from council to get us the go-ahead to proceed with design and procurement of overhead power in the Southwest Industrial Park. Administration has engaged MVA Consulting through Tagish Engineering to review the design and procurement of the shallow utilities, including the 3-phase power, Shaw, TELUS, and ATCO Gas. And through their initial design review, MVA has provided us with 2 options. One would be to go with overhead power, TELUS, and Shaw servicing, and then the ATCO would be buried. And the second option was to bury all the utilities in the industrial park. There are benefits and drawbacks to both. I'll go through the direct bury benefits more. So to start, we have no issues with overhead clearance for high loads and things like that. In a direct bury situation, all of the construction is handled by a third party, whereas with overhead, it has to be done by Fortis or one of their approved contractors. So at that point, we're subject to their timelines, their design, and their outlines. With the direct bury, we can set streetlights in locations and spacing as we see fit. There won't be any outages for any future upgrades to the system itself. The only big drawback really is that we have to complete some grading within the easement areas prior to the start of the direct bury construction. but that's gonna have to be done at one point or another either way. If we go with the overhead power option, there are some limitations with the maximum transformer sizes. There's load height restrictions, so I think everybody knows that Bilton in particular has had some pretty sizable loads come out of that industrial park in the last few years. If we were to have a similar setup in the area, we'd be looking at potentially raised lines or temporary outages depending on the loads. Fortis's timelines for overhead power are their own. They do their own design. It takes about 6 months for us to get complete turnaround. They handle the construction through either themselves or an approved contractor, which also is about a 6-month process. For Fortis to handle that, and then TELUS and Shaw would probably piggyback those lines as well, but they would also have qualified utility installers come out and do the work. Again, at the mercy of Fortis's install process. The big difference though is the cost between the two. If we go the overhead power route, which administration is recommending, the estimated cost right now is $350,000 to complete the construction. And if we were to go the direct Barrie route with everything, we'd be looking at closer to $700,000 for construction. But at this time, yeah, we're looking for council to direct us to go with the overhead power option, just strictly because of the cost savings.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion that we direct administration to go with the underground services. And I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I fully support the underground construction. We are planning for the future, and like you say, we don't know what the future is going to hold. And, you know, if we put our crystal ball on it, it is an industrial area, and God knows what we're going to be designing in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So I fully support underground, out of sight, sort of out of mind, and you don't have to worry about wires hanging down and poles and all of that other stuff. So I fully support that motion, Mayor Barkley.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, I agree with our worship and Councillor Harrison. I was around when we developed the Boston Pizza area, and we did overhead. And looking back on it, this is, you know, you learn some lessons in municipal politics, and going cheap, or I'll call it, sometimes when you go with the cheaper product, it's junk. And your you buy a decent hockey stick, it lasts a lot longer than the shitty one. And so that's where I'm at. I really think that underground is the way to go, out of sight, out of mind. And then I think that in that area where the overhead power has limited, it doesn't look as nice. And I think future projects should go underground. Thanks.
Just one quick follow-up, if I may. In respect to the overall budget for the project, we've asked Tagus to revise our budget for the project based on the underground contract, which is coming up next. But either way, we had initially set out $5.5 million in the borrowing bylaw for this project. Either way, we'll still be projected below that budget within those confines. It just, the difference is between, you know, we're at 4.8 million versus 5.2 with the underground option.
And the idea is to recoup those costs when we sell the land. I guess some things I look at, the reason I like to see underhead, I look at some of the, I guess, constraints around the overhead, and also being on somebody else's timeline. I'm not too keen on that, and, you know, the maximum transformer use and all that. So I think, you know, the kind of manufacturing that's going down there, or what could go on, that it would be a mistake to go overhead for sure. But I appreciate what you're saying, and the cost, of course, is significantly more. But Councillor Bates?
Well, it's interesting because I grew up on a farm back in the 60s. My dad put everything underground, and I've been a fan of underground forever. But I'll say I look at I look at some of the things that I see gonna happen in my subdivision as we proceed to whatever the future of energy is. And once you've buried it, you're really in trouble if you ever want to change it. Just make that comment. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion to,
I just was
sorry,
gonna
I'm
make a
sorry,
comment,
Director
because
Jenkins,
just for
excuse me.
Counselor Bates, because I know that's come up a couple of times, and when we were discussing with Equus, we sort of asked your question. And they said that most of the limitations for the residential and electric vehicles and that sort of charging exists at the transformers and those upgrades, as opposed to the actual service connections into the lots.
Okay, so we have a motion that we ask direct administration to proceed with the design and procurement of the underground services. So all in favor? Okay, carried. We'll move on to 8.2, request for decision on the Southwestern Industrial Park Underground Contract Award.
All right. Oh, for one, we'll try another one.
Welcome to council.
So last Tuesday, we closed the tender for the water and sewer portion of the Southwest Industrial Park. We received six bids, with Northside Construction being the low, coming in just over 1.5 million, which was significantly better. We had originally estimated close to 2.2 million for the cost of this scope of the work. Tagish has reviewed the bids. They didn't see anything that looked to be unbalanced or a concern on their part. So we are recommending that council approves the award of the underground contract to Northside Construction, or direct us otherwise.
Don't be bitters. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor Bates, yes.
I'll move the council approves the award of the Southwest Industrial Park Underground Contract to Northside Construction Partnership for $1,561,577.37 to be funded from the Southwest Industrial Park borrow bylaw.
Okay.
If I may, just briefly before we vote on that, no, I just want to make sure. I don't get to vote, but just so everybody's aware, if we approve this motion, regardless of the status of the borrowing bylaw, we will be going ahead with this work, even if that means that we have to take it from the land acquisition and servicing reserve. If that's the case, it would be paid back. Or not. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Carried. Unanimous.
That's an amazing difference from That's amazing.
They always are. Yeah.
We've seen much bigger.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have.
Some of the same actors kind of fall in the same order, it seems like.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to 9.1, correspondence and information. Is everyone attending municipal caucus on June 22? No, you're not. I know you weren't, Councillor Bates, with your company here. Okay, I'll have somebody make a motion to accept this correspondence as information, please.
Mayor Barkley, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, and we will start with roundtable with Councillor Maceras today.
Yeah, so last week we had MPC and I got to attend the garden party, the seniors garden party. It was excellent. I'll be going every year from now on. Thursday night I went to Cape and planning on going to the Cape AGM on Friday to learn a little bit more about them and what kind of value they offer to our community. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I had a very, very slow last week, and mainly because of work. But I'm looking forward to a number of things coming up this week and in the following weeks.
Thanks.
Councillor Wing.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barkley. Actually, last week was a really busy week, so it was quiet the week before, but last week was certainly a lot of fun celebrating Seniors Week with the events at the Golf and Country Club. So nice to see people together that hadn't been together for a while. They were very joyful, I can tell you. And the garden party at the Historical Village was, I'm with Councillor Mazzaros. I will be there every year. I'll belong there every year, actually. We did have an interesting MPC meeting. We haven't had a lot of meetings since we've started, since the election, that had a lot of meat on the agenda. And so I thought it was a very interesting process, and I appreciated the thoughts and comments from the commission. I had 2 Chamber of Commerce and CED meetings last week, so certainly busy. The Thursday morning market seems to be going well. And there's more and more interest in the Tuesday market on Main, so we're starting to see more and more vendors coming out, which is great. I was unable to attend the Cape networking event last Thursday as I was fulfilling the first year of my 2-year term as the past president at Westerner Park. But I would just like to, I only bring that up because this is another critical organization in Central Alberta that the town of Innisfail needs to pay attention to as a potential partner, and I would certainly be happy to make any introductions there as we move forward as well. But I will be going to the Cape AGM on Friday. And I tried to participate in session 2 of the extended producer responsibility session last Friday. However, it was like they sent us out the link and nobody ever started the meeting. So if there's a session 2 that comes up in the future, I'd like to be advised, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Bates.
So I too attended the interesting MPC meeting. I also had a water commission meeting, and we've kind of moved very much along on the business plan. Come this fall, we will, if the business plan is approved, we will be renewing a membership agreement with the town of Innisfail, which is something that I think the town's looked for a couple of years. Goes back a lot more than that. It'll also include the projected timing of a couple of major projects that are down the road in years, of a new clear well expansion and relocating the inlet to the Dixon Dam. That'd be the major one, and that's probably close to 10 years out. Anyway, that document will become public once it's complete. And they are looking forward to discussions with provincial environment, and they have made sure that TC Energy understands that they're ready for engagement. I went to the mayor's garden party. It was amazing, and I did qualify. It was one of the best I've ever been to, and I've been to every one that I can remember in the last 10 years. And my visitors from Singapore arrive tomorrow, and I'll show up to as many things as I can in the interim if they decide to go to Calgary or do other things that they will have on their schedule once they develop it. I will plan to be at the Day Dental and the parade this coming Saturday. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Hystad.
Thanks, Your Worship. Of course, we're at council tonight. I think we have a Legion tomorrow night. And then due to work commitments, Councillor Harrison's going to look after Age Friendly. It's earlier in the day, I believe, at noon. So time commitment is tight to get out. The only other question, process question I would have for CEO Becker would, had a chat with you, I think it was about a couple weeks ago, about the new and used store. There was that alleyway with a graffiti and the conversation about concerns with people hanging out in the alley and stuff. And I just wanted to follow up with that with you right now or later. Thanks.
I'd like to respond now, Mayor Barkley, to Councillor Heisted. Yeah, we did engage with the owner of that business just late last week.
Thanks. Thanks for doing that.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I had one meeting last week, and it was with the Parkland Foundation, and we spent an inordinate amount of time on our business plan, which is now approved for 23-25. And there's a couple of notes in here. There's 5 strategic priorities for the foundation, and they are investing now and for the future, integrated housing and support, successful transition and aging in community, fair and flexible, and a sustainable system. Under the first outcome, investing now and in the future, there was a bullet. One of the performance measures and indicators is that the foundation will work with Alberta Social Housing Corporation. There's a piece of land that's immediately to the north. It's part of the existing complex. It's probably about 4 acres. And it's currently owned by Alberta Social Housing Corporation. And there's concern from the foundation that they could sell it, lease it, do whatever they want with it, because the title is not in the foundation's name. So we'll be working on that. And I suggested that maybe the CAO of the foundation, Carla, get a hold of the town here for a letter of support for that. Because right now, if they decided to do something else with it, that piece of land could be something else, and it's a nice fit with what's there, and it works into the phase 2 discussions that the foundation will be having in subsequent years. So, be looking forward to that, and I'll connect with Carla after this meeting and just say and she'll help us draft that letter of support. So, and the second thing we talked about was the Red Deer Housing Authority, and I've noted, and it was in my discussion with the FCSS director. As far as vacancy, we're really fortunate in Innisfil, or I guess unfortunate, and however you want to look at it. We're full. Our facilities are all full. There is a barbecue on June 23rd that council will be invited to. It's at the Autumn Grove, and if you have time, please attend. That is a beautiful facility. They give us a tour of the wellness area. You don't see it from 50th Avenue. It's sort of in behind where the main entrance. There's fountains, there's flowers. They've just done a fantastic job there for the residents. So, and all the comments that they've had back from the residents there have all been really positive. So it's a facility that the foundation is very proud of, and I think our community is very proud of too. So financially, we're on track for this quarter. We're actually sitting really good. We're working on an action plan for the board on competencies. One of the things that we need to do is develop a competency list for our board and ensure that our board members have the competencies that are required by the government. So I would expect that all the other commissions and boards will probably follow suit somewhere down the road. So be thinking about it. Notwithstanding that the commissions and boards we have now, there's the competencies there, but I think the government just wants to be assured that there is some type of due diligence there. So that was it. I will be attending the parade. The pancake breakfast starts at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning at the Legion. So you want to come over and indulge in that. We have the parade. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Is Dodds Lake Manor full as well?
Pardon me?
Is Dodds Lake Manor full as well?
What?
Dodds Lake Manor, is it full as well?
Yes, yeah, all their facilities, no, 91%.
91.
So
Okay, yeah,
it's,
okay, well, that's good.
it's, well, I think 1 unit or 2 units, but they do have a waiting list, so.
At Autumn Grove, they do, yeah.
So, yeah, we're in pretty good shape.
You know, just kind of going back to that housing discussion again, of course, this all fits in with it, but I believe there's the ability that if, and you may want to ask the board this or take it back to the board, if a place doesn't fill up with seniors, affordable seniors housing, I think they do have the ability to potentially rent to under the 65-year age group.
They do.
Yeah,
They
so
do.
that may be something to look at, because I know, you know, I mean, Dodds Manor was, you know, quite empty for a while because they moved people to Autumn Grove if they wished, but it's good to hear that it's filling up, but just another option that we may be able to bring forward in the housing discussion. And
I'll certainly table that at our next meeting, which is in October.
okay, thank you. Okay, so I went to the seniors lunch at the golf course, and the golf course tour, it was great. When Karen asked who wanted to be involved, I don't know, I had in my head maybe a dozen people would show up for that, but it was like, I don't know, 70, I think, with volunteers and everything, so it was wonderful. I believe we had 4 different tours around the golf course with Dwayne, so that was awesome. People had never seen the golf course before, so it was great to see their reaction. And then Wednesday, of course, the garden party, Popovich's were great, like as usual. It was really interesting. There was a family standing by the historical village gate, kind of taking pictures, and so I went to say hi and drag them in. They were younger people, but they had come up from, I think it was High River for the date, and they were camping at Discovery Wildlife Park. So we pulled them into the garden party, and they had such a wonderful time. And on Thursday, Town Chamber working lunch with Eric Burton, Factor 5. Also went to the Cape networking event that evening. Tomorrow evening have the Council Legion engagement at 6:30. I'm going to listen, I think, to most of it anyway. The Red Deer River Watershed Alliance AGM. I know we're not members, but I think there might be some good information coming out of that. Certainly going to attend the interagency fair at the Legion that Karen referenced earlier in the day, and the Cape AGM on Friday. Thank you to Councillor Harrison for filling in at the South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission for me on Friday. And also the parade day on Saturday. There's also a blanket exercise in the afternoon, and we'll also be attending day dental. So we'll move on now to open microphone. If there's anybody listening online who would like to say anything or have any comments. No? Okay, perfect. Then we'll have a motion to move in camera, please.
May I say something, Mayor Barkley?
Yes, you may. I
before we
wasn't
do
sure
that?
if you were ready to
Sorry,
make
yeah.
a motion or wanted. Okay.
Back to my round table. I was just wondering if anyone was planning on attending the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program webinar on June 15th. I can't make that one. I was thinking it would be good for someone to attend that. That's question 1. And question 2 is it okay to forward that invitation to people outside of council?
I'm not sure who it's addressed to. Is it for municipal?
It's from Alberta municipalities.
But is it addressed to councillors, like elected officials, or can you tell? Maybe Kara could look into that and see. How would that be? Can you tell?
I can't tell. Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to look into that, Kara, to see who it's for?
Thanks. Sure,
Okay.
will do. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe, I don't know if there's anybody on staff, CO Becker, that could maybe take part in that. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get somebody to listen to it.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll have a motion to go in camera, please.
Mayor Barkley will make that motion.
Okay,
We go in
thank you.
camera.
All in favor?